Good day, everyone, and welcome to the second part of our discussion on the religion Buddhism. Last time, we talked about the two major Buddhist traditions, and we know that it is split into two, the Theravada Buddhism and Mahayana Buddhism. Today, we are going to discuss the different elements, history, and connections, and other details about these major Buddhist traditions. First, let's start with Theravada Buddhism. The Theravada Mahayana, or the Way of Elders, Buddhism became widespread in Sri Lanka in South Asia. This is the history of the spread of Buddhism. And the Mon people introduced it in Burma, now Myanmar, in Southeast Asia. It means from India, and it spread out in the mainland Asia, particularly in the mainland Southeast Asian region of Asia. During 11th century CE in Burma, King Anarawata's conversion to Theravada Buddhism paved the way for the development of a large following of the religion. This eventually led to the establishment of monasteries and the further spread of Theravada Buddhism in the country. Remember, the foundation of Buddhism was facilitated by the monks and live a monastic type of life to reach enlightenment. And from then, from India, Sri Lanka, and Burma, Theravada Buddhism later propagated in Thailand, Laos, and Cambodia. In Cambodia, it became even more widespread when the Thais invaded Angkor around 1431, and most Cambodians became followers of Theravada Buddhism. And then the Mahayana, or Greater Vehicle Buddhism, mostly propagated in northern part of India and has since spread this time to Vietnam and in East Asian countries such as Japan, South Korea, and China. We now see how Buddhism spread all throughout Asia, in Southeast Asia, East Asia, and of course from South Asia or from India. The Theravada Buddhism is most likely practiced in Southeast Asian countries, in Thailand, Myanmar, Laos, and Cambodia. So Theravada Buddhism here in Southeast Asia. However, there is also a large Theravada Buddhist population in Sri Lanka and in South Asia. In southern part, Sri Lanka is the southern part of India. Theravada practitioners make up about 25.2% of the Buddhist population, or nearly at least 130 million people. The Theravada Buddhists claim that their beliefs can be traced to the original teachings of Buddha. The Buddha is also considered the enlightened one, and the sole teacher who is wisdom is the source of liberation from suffering. And actually, the belief, basically, the teaching of Buddha himself, or the goal of Siddhartha Gautama, that the Buddhism is a religion, somehow would be the source of your liberation from your suffering. This is reflected in the traditions practiced by Theravada Buddhism, as well as the objects and texts that they consider holy. And also, Theravada Buddhism has been considered the more conservative division of Buddhism, as it is believed to have changed little despite spreading all over various Asian countries. The Theravada Buddhism and Mahayana Buddhism have significant differences, which are seen in the sacred texts. They recognize certain practices and principles observed in the holy days of festivals they celebrate. They vary some festivals, and at the same time, the use of sacred texts in each particular division. The sacred text of Theravada is Tipitaka, which means Pali for triple basket. Tripitaka in Sanskrit, otherwise known as Pali Canon. Pali is the language used in religious ceremonies in India and sacred texts in Theravada Buddhism. So the guide to Tipitaka, introduction to the Buddhist canon. The name of Tipitaka refers to the baskets or boxes in which the sections of the text were vision of Tipitaka. Um, most likely, the Tipitaka is equivalent to the Bible to the Christian and Quran to the Islam. And then the sacred text of Theravada Buddhism, it says inside the Tipitaka or Tipal basket, otherwise known as Pali Canon. This Pali is the language used in religious ceremonies. Um, and then again, no, this refers to the baskets or boxes. It is believed that Tipitaka was written between 500 BCE and the first centuries. It contained the surviving body of works in the Pali language. The Tipitaka is the earliest collection of the Buddhist teachings and the only text recognized as canonical, which means canonical recognized. So in early days, it did not exist in book form, but was instead written on the palm leaves in thin slices of wood, such as bamboo. And then the canon contains legends and other stories important to the Theravada Buddhism. They have their history also on how they came up with their sacred texts, used as their guide for the rituals and worships, or their moment of prayer and reflections. So here are the three baskets of Tipitaka, the Sutta, Adhidharma, and Vinaya. So there is this what we call equivalent to Judaism, the Torah or the New Testament to Christianity. As I said, no, Bible to Christianity, Quran to Islam, and here the the Tripitaka uh, or the three baskets to Theravada Buddhism. Okay, so the divisions of Buddhism after Buddha's death, there were differing opinions or laws concerning the core teachings and practices of Buddhism. Eventually, three main Buddhist traditions formed: Theravada, Mahayana, and now there is this Tibetan. So it was mentioned that Theravada was for the way of the elders, oldest traditions, best way to attain nirvana, and the and monks and nuns meditate. And then this is also about finding one path to enlightenment. Very much an individual religion, very traditional. Mahayana teaches people can help each other find enlightenment. Um, it is most likely for ordinary people as well. Uh, that's why it is more on the aspect of the liberalism in terms of their practices. And then Tibetan shares many Mahayana teachings. It's like Mahayana teachings. Believes also special techniques can harness spiritual energy, lead to nirvana in single lifetime. So these are the different concepts and practices, beliefs, ideas, perspectives of these two dominant traditions of Buddhism, the three Theravada and Mahayana. Let's go now to the Mahayana Buddhism. The practices and principles of Mahayana Buddhists are found in the belief that everyone can become a Buddha. According to Mahayana, Buddhist enlightenment can be achieved with the help from the Buddha himself and the Bodhisattvas or individuals who are about to achieve Buddhahood, or in our terms, uh, in our belief that it is for Christianhood. Right? This is the reason behind significant revisions of the Mayan tradition from the basic teachings of Buddhism. That means the difference at Mahayana, it is more on everyone has the right or can achieve to become a Buddha. So therefore, it is more liberal because it opens everyone somehow to be a facilitator or considered as a person who can achieve what Buddha achieved as well. So it is more widely practiced Buddhist tradition and make up about 71.5 of the Buddhist population. That means there are many, particularly in the countries of China, Japan, South Korea, and as well as Vietnam in Southeast Asia. These countries, according to the World Religion Database, were part of the 10 countries with the largest Buddhist population in 2015. So, for division of Buddhism, of course, we mentioned Theravada, Mahayana, and then there was this Tibetan, and then also Zen. Zen is a mixture of Indian Mahayana Buddhism and Taoism. It's most likely found in East Asia. And then the sacred texts of Mahayana Buddhism, like Theravada, Mahayana followers hold the Tipitaka texts in high regard. However, there is another set of texts which are considered sacred in Mahayana tradition, the sutras. And these are considered as the sacred text of Mahayana Buddhism, composed of 2,184 texts. And the sutras delve into the important beliefs and practices in this religion. Some of the most well-known and frequently used sutras are the Lotus Sutra, the Heart Sutra, the Land Bliss Sutra, and the Filial Piety Sutra. And the Lotus Sutra, that Buddha gives instructions to the Bodhisattvas on how to achieve enlightenment. The Bodhisattvas considered as the persons in authority or minister of the Mahayana Buddhism. And they also the first persons who received the instructions from Buddha. And then also, it contains mantras which Mahayana Buddhists believe are important in overcoming barriers to reaching enlightenment and becoming Buddha. So that is Lotus Sutra. And the Heart Sutra discusses the concepts of enlightenment and nothingness, which Mahayana Buddhists regard as the ultimate reality, that there is always enlightenment, and at the same time, the opposite is nothingness. The Heart Sutra also describes 5 skandhas, or the components that make up an individual's being and existence, in the physical body, consciousness, sensations, perceptions, and mental formations. The Heart Sutra is known for its conciseness and made up of this only 1 or 2 pages. And then here comes Bliss Sutra, or the Land of Bliss Sutra, well known among the practitioners of Pure Land Buddhism. In this sutra, so sutra again, the text or in Christianity, it's like your Bible. And the Pure Land, or the Bliss Land of Bliss Sutra, as Pure Land is described, and Amitabha, or the principal entity of Pure Land Buddhism, gives instructions on how an individual can enter this place. And then the Filial Piety Sutra is one of the most highly regarded sutras among Chinese Mahayana Buddhists. This sutra integrates the Confucianist belief in the importance of filial piety, or loving one's parents. The Buddhist speaks about the sacrifices the parents make for their children and how a child can repay his or her parents' kindness. So those are the different sutras, or the basis of their beliefs of the Mahayana Buddhism. So here is the example of artistic depiction of the Pure Land. Okay, in the Land of Bliss Sutra. Somehow it is portraying about the solidarity of the enlightened Buddhists. Okay, so the nature of Buddha, according to Mahayana Buddhists, has existed and informs our bodies, also referred as Tikya, the body of transformation, the importance of the nature, or the body of bliss and the body of essence. Transformation, the somehow it is considered to be the chance or opportunity, okay, for transformation and change. In Christianity, it's called metanoia, or conversion. Here, Buddha as Siddhartha Gautama, as the one who transformed, or most likely the transformation is the identity of Buddha himself, or the enlightened. This body believed to be merely manifestation of the body of bliss. It is said to be the form of Buddha who imparted the teachings of Buddhist faith. That's why in return, the personified form of the body of essence, which is regarded a true Buddha in its ultimate and eternal form. So I mentioned last time about emptiness. That the concept of emptiness exists in both two Buddhist traditions, the Theravada and Mahayana. It's very significant because the prominence of this concept is the doctrines of these traditions. And emptiness is seen merely as part of enlightenment. That means that you uh, are open and recognize emptiness. So somehow it is a way for you to be enlightened. That in some extent, being empty of suffering also opens your blessings and grace to achieve enlightenment. So this emptiness, a basic characteristic of all entities in the universe. So in Mahayana Buddhism, was said to have been the first thought by philosopher Nagarjuna. According to Nagarjuna, all beings and entities in the universe do not have their own existence. And being able to understand and appreciate this fact helps individual avoid clinging to a desired object and thinking about being nothing. In our beliefs, that is somehow will remind us of from nothing we came and to nothing we came back. So this also encourages individuals to refrain from selfishness. Instead, be compassionate and loving towards other people. So again, the Bodhisattvas are individuals in the Mahayana practitioners who are on the way of attaining Buddhahood. Some of them are considered to be ministers. Attaining is about to attain Buddhahood. They're also identified as other bodies of this of the Buddha. Okay, so their precepts are an important or are important set of rules of Mahayana. They are expected to follow. They are compelled and compelled to adhere or to follow. So they focus on practicing compassion and helping others. So these precepts can be considered as variation on the five precepts that are followed by the Buddhist in general. You remember those five precepts. So these precepts specifically, again, the same, from stealing, killing, sexual practices, false speech, selling alcoholic substances, and etc. So they have this also six paramitas of Mahayana Buddhists. And these paramitas are considered to be the values that can help an individual become Bodhisattva or shall we say ganap or ultimate an attainment of Buddhahood. You have to be generous, that you should not limit to and willingness or not limited to willingness to give material possession, but instead protecting others from danger as well. So it's not only about material things. And then morality, patience, efforts, meditation, and wisdom. These are very important for you to achieve Buddhahood. So they also imbibe these eight realizations. In Sutra, eight realizations contains guidelines on how a Mahayana Buddhist can recognize instances of suffering and overcome it. Eventually, this shall help an individual find fulfillment in his or her life. And these realizations are believed to have been achieved and explained by the Buddha himself. An example, the first realization for the sizes of impermanence abounds in all beings and phenomena. So it also states that everything is an illusion and nothing has its own identity. And it continues to change. And also, second realization states that desire and greed are the root of suffering. So greediness is the reason why we suffer. And the third realization points out that satisfaction can lead to evil deeds, and that individual must instead pursue contentment and wisdom. The fourth realization looks into laziness as hindrance of achieving success and fulfillment in one's life. We agree with this kind of realization. The fifth realization states that ignorance leads also to persistence of samsara, or the cycle of birth and rebirth. With this, individual is encouraged to seek knowledge and gain wisdom in order to eliminate ignorance. So here also very important that ignorance excuses no one. So that is very important to have knowledge and understand. Sixth realization emphasizes the poverty and drive people to be angry towards one another. So in order to overcome this problem, it is important to be generous towards everyone and share. Very important, the value of sharing. And the seventh realization points us also difficulties in one's life are products of worldliness. Wealth, beauty, and gluttony and laziness, it is there. It is, I mean, these are the difficulties which one's life are products of worldliness. It is the goal that individual to avoid worldliness and pursuit of this desire. Not so much engrossed on wealth, beauty, gluttony, and laziness. And also, the eighth revelation states that, eighth realization states that it is duty of all individuals not only to deliver themselves from suffering, but also to help one another to do the same, encouraging one, I mean, encouraging other people to also adhere to these realizations and, of course, put these realizations to your heart as members of Buddhism or believers of Buddhism. So the three main beliefs of Buddhism are universal truths of Buddhism. And in summary, it is always this way. After all, we discussed the doctrines and beliefs and perspectives. It is always about here the clearer ideas and truths of Buddhism are number one, nothing is lost in the universe. There is always a reason why it happened. And the constant, ever-changing life and the law of cause and effect, which somehow lead to karma. Kung anong ginagawa mo sa kapwa mo ay mangyayari din sa iyo. Okay, and then there are also 196 sutras, which we discussed earlier, the sacred texts, and these are divided into four groups. The Samadhipada contains of 51 sutras, Sadhadapada, 55 sutras, Vibhutipada, 73 sutras, and Kaivalyapada, 34 sutras. Means these are sutras means the sacred texts of sutras that are divided into this number of texts representing the whole sacred text of Buddhism. Okay, so thank you so much. Those were the details on the beliefs, doctrines, and at the same time practices or basis of the practices of this religion were discussed. And very important that the learnings we can get from Buddhism is always in our senses that somehow they are very valid and true. That nothing in this world happens by just nothing, but it is always for the reason, or there is always reason of why it happened. And life is ever changing and constant thing in this world is change. So we have to adapt with change. And whatever we do, there is always the so-called consequences of what we do, the cause and effect of our actions. So once again, thank you for listening and have a good day.